Next, we present Dan Kanda, who currently resides as one of the co-owners of the Flowering Sun Ecology Center, an oasis in the heart of the Catskills. Dan is dedicated to sacred ecology, farming, and education, and he is here with us today to share with his vast knowledge of mushrooms. Thank you, Dan, for being with us today, and welcome.
Thank you guys so much for having me here. I feel extremely honored and grateful to be here with you. It's been an incredible journey being part of the farm at Flowering Sun Ecology. I've been here for around maybe a little over 3 years, and we focus on sacred ecology, seed preservation, education, and growing food for our entire community. And one of the things that I have been working with is with the mushrooms. This has been a passion of mine for many, many years. And I have the privilege of working with these beings every single day. So in this presentation today, I hope to share with you some of this magic that these mushrooms bring. And I hope to share also a little bit about how to cultivate them at home and the different problems that we could save around the world together with mushrooms. So let's get started. So let's dive into this world of mushrooms together. It's a vast world. It's a mystical world. It's a magical world. There's just so much there. But we need to start with, what is a mushroom? You may see them popping up, in the woods after a rain. It's not an animal. It's not a plant. It's somewhere in between. They don't do any photosynthesis like plants. They actually eat sugars like we do. The only difference is they have an external stomach, and they also breathe oxygen. So they're much more closely related to us than to the plants. However, the mushroom is the reproductive organ of a much larger organism, which is actually called the mycelium. Now, this mycelium is the actual being, and usually it lives underground or inside of a tree. And this mycelium is comprised of very small thread-like structures called hyphae, which branch out almost like neural pathways in our brain, and they search for food, they search for resources, and they connect to one another. And after this mycelium, this massive mycelium gets enough resources, that's when it will push out a mushroom, which is its fruiting body. So here you can see a couple of mushrooms, and that is, you're seeing them releasing their spores. So after the mushrooms mature, they send out their spores, which are single cellular, and they fly across the entire atmosphere. They could fly many, many miles. And that is the cycle. The spore, they meet, two spores meet, and they start germinating, forming hyphae, and in turn causes and creates more mycelium. So the first thing that brought me to the mushroom world is food. I was always had a passion for cooking, and when I realized how delicious mushrooms were, I never looked back. There's so many different things that you could do with mushrooms, and especially for people who are on a plant-based diet, mushrooms offer so much variety and so much diversity that we could add to our diet. So here you can see the first picture is of an oyster mushroom that I cooked up like a steak. It's extremely, extremely dense and fibrous and chewy. In the middle here, we have some cremini mushrooms, and on the right, we have some piapino mushrooms. So there's so many different tastes, textures, varieties. They're packed with tons of nutrients, B minerals, vitamins, proteins, amino acids. Additionally, there's so many different mushroom tastes that you will never find in a supermarket, and they just need to be foraged. Things like truffles, things like hen of the woods, maitake, chicken of the woods. So there's a vast, vast world in the culinary arts. However, it's important to also note that there are some deadly poisonous mushrooms. So it's important not to just go out in the woods and start eating mushrooms that you see. These mushrooms deserve respect. They deserve understanding from our part. We need to understand these beings. So here we have a picture of a death cap, and we have a picture of a destroying angel. These mushrooms are so deadly that even just one cap can kill you. And, even if you get rushed into the hospital, they may not be able to save you. So don't let this put you off, but it's just very important to have the awareness and the respect for the mushrooms. In addition to that, mushrooms are extremely potent medicines, one of the most potent medicines on this planet. Here we have 3 different mushrooms that I highlighted. We have the chaga, the reishi, and the turkey tail. These are all mushrooms that you could find all around the world, and they have incredible immune boosting properties. Additionally, these mushrooms in particular are extremely good for fighting cancers. So this has been used in Chinese medicine for thousands of years. And, I think in our Western world, this is just kind of coming to the forefront right now. So it's such an incredible tool that we have available to us with these mushrooms. And in addition to fighting different diseases, there's also mushrooms that vastly improve our cognitive abilities. So lion's mane, for example, is a mushroom that is delicious, and it also vastly improves our minds. It will increase our memory. It can give us more clarity and focus. Cordyceps can give us a very natural form of sustained energy. Oyster mushrooms can reduce our blood pressure. So there's a lot of different uses of these medicines, and it's a really good thing to study for ourselves. Another use of mushrooms, and this is something I really wanted to talk about, I just find it so fascinating. They're mushrooms called entomopathogenic fungi. Now, these fungi, these mushrooms, specifically attack insects. That is their favorite food source. The spores of these mushrooms will land on an insect, and they will germinate inside of the exoskeleton, and the mycelium will form and travel inside of the insect, hijacking its nervous system. And this is where the really cool part happens. The mushroom actually controls the insect. Every mushroom has different conditions that it likes. Some like higher humidity, some like more oxygen, higher atmosphere. So it will literally tell the insect to start going to those more favorable conditions. It will make the ant start climbing up into a tree. When an ant normally would never climb a tree, it will start climbing a tree, and it will get to the exact temperature, exact humidity that the mushroom wants. And at that point, the mushroom will tell the ant to stop, to stay there. It will clamp onto a leaf, and at that point, the mushroom will pop right out of its head. It's like out of a science fiction movie. And interestingly enough, these mushrooms, when they pop out of the insect, they have been shown also to, that's when they sporulate, and they extrude a bomb of spores, and they sometimes will do that right on top of the insect's nest. So not only are they coordinating the conditions that they like to survive, but they're also spreading their spores directly above the nest of these insects. And there is a lot of research right now on the frontiers of farming and science of using these mushrooms as natural insecticides, which is a huge game changer. Right now there's very harmful chemicals that are being used. So this is one way that we can transform that part of agriculture. But they're not just insect killers. There's also insect protectors, specifically the honeybees. The honeybees are such an important part of our ecosystem. They're the pollinators. Without the bees, we wouldn't have so many vegetables that we have available to us today. And unfortunately, the honeybees have been experiencing a decline. There's been a lot of diseases that they've been experiencing. And there's been research recently shown that certain mushrooms have been helping them. Certain mushrooms have been boosting their immune systems. So Paul Stamets, who's on the mushroom frontiers, he's been doing a lot of this research, and it's been very promising. So I hope we keep moving into those directions as well. Mycoremediation. So this is this is fantastic. I see mushrooms as like a phoenix rising through the ashes. The mushrooms, they're almost at the end of the life cycle of things. You know, when a tree falls, when the leaves fall, when something is decaying, the mushrooms, the fungi, is there to finish the cycle. It finishes the decomposition, and it holds the key to unlock the nutrients in that organism, in that decaying organism, to go back into the soil. So mycoremediation is a branch of science which uses mycelium and different types of funguses to combat different pollutions that we're experiencing in our world today. For example, oil spills, toxic waste, any type of fires. These mushrooms can actually bring back balance to the environment. They can eat away through these very harmful pollutants and restore it back to the natural cycle. There's so many uses of mushrooms. This is just, this is just skimming the edge, so I encourage anybody who's interested to look into this, because there's, so many different applications that we can do here. So there's 3 types of mushrooms that I just want to quickly talk about here. There's the saprophytic fungi. This is your primary decomposers. Here we have a picture of a blue oyster mushroom. And these mushrooms decay organic matter. Decaying organic matter is what they primarily eat. So any like dead trees, dead leaves, they are the ones to recycle them. Another type of mushroom is the parasitic fungi. Now, these mushrooms live off of living organic matter. This example is of the honey mushroom. It's an edible mushroom. I actually grew up eating it quite a lot, but it can decimate entire forests. So they also recycle the forest. So anytime there's an unhealthy population in a forest, these mushrooms come in and they, start that recycling process. Interesting fact, these honey mushrooms are the largest organism in the entire planet. There's an estimated over 2,000 acres of land in Oregon, which is comprised of the mycelium of this individual organism, not different honey mushrooms that are all living together, but one honey mushroom that has been living there for, scientists are estimating, around 2,400 years. Some scientists are even saying it could be as ancient as 8,650 years old. So just wrap your head around that. These beings are truly incredible. And the third type that I really want to talk about is the mycorrhizal fungi. Mycorrhizal fungi is mushrooms that essentially form a symbiotic relationship, a beneficial relationship between a tree or a plant and the roots. So the mycelium of the mushroom literally will intertwine around the roots, or sometimes will even go inside of the roots of the tree, and the mushroom and the tree will start sharing resources. The tree will give the mushrooms different sugars, that it obtains through photosynthesis, and the mushroom can give the tree nitrogen. So there's this balance that's happening. But not only does the mushroom have an opportunity to share resources with the tree, but the trees can actually use this mycelium network to share resources with other trees, to communicate with other trees. The entire forest is connected through this mycelial web. I think, it's been brought up many times that this mycelial web is the intranet of the forest. It literally connects every single inch of the forest together through underground through these networks. Mother trees, trees that are a couple hundred years old, can share nutrients with their saplings, with their baby sapling descendants that maybe are so small they're still under the shade canopy and they don't have access to sunlight. So the trees are able to survive because the mother tree can send them nutrients. The entire forest is communicating through this. So it's just truly incredible. There's a lot to learn for us as well, and how this whole relationship plays out. So how do we grow mushrooms? Just want to show you guys a really quick video of our grow room. Just go over it really quickly. So this is our grow room. Here you can see some black pearl king oysters. This grow room serves as a couple of purposes. These are the blue oysters, but it gives the proper environment for growing these mushrooms. It has high enough humidity, which the mushrooms like, and it also has a high oxygen level, which the mushrooms need to survive. These are the chestnut mushrooms. And this is the lion's mane mushroom. And I'm going to go over really quickly how we can create these blocks, which is essentially just sawdust mixed in with different supplements. And, you'll be able to even actually, AJ, can you put me in? So this is a mushroom block that I just took from our grow room. This is a blue oyster. And, these mushrooms, they have the ability to double in size in 24 hours. They grow extremely, extremely fast. And this is basically 50% sawdust, and it's also 50% supplements. So in this case, we use soy hulls, but there's lots of different supplements that you can use, and also water. And basically, that's all you need to grow these mushrooms. Go back to the slideshow. So you need the substrate, which is the material to feed the mycelium. Then we need a way to sterilize or pasteurize the substrate, so only the mycelium grows. Then we need spawn or spores to be inoculated into the substrate. And 4, we need a proper growing environment. So first, you need to figure out what mushroom you want to grow. Different mushrooms grow on different substrates. Oysters love wood. So here we have a pile of wood chips. There's some straw, cardboard. You could even grow mushrooms on. On the top, we have some manure. Now, not all mushrooms will grow on manure, but the cremini mushrooms, the portobello mushrooms that you'll find in the store, they grow on manure. So the first thing is to know what mushroom you want to grow, and then what kind of substrate you're going to use. So for the oyster mushrooms, we're going to use some wood, some sawdust, but we also need to give it a supplement. The wood has a lot of lignin, which is great for the mushroom, but it doesn't have enough sugars, doesn't have enough nutrients. So here in the industry, a lot of people use soybean hulls, also corn husks, hulls, spent ground coffee grains you can use as well. There's many, many things, and a lot of these supplements are agricultural waste products that we have no use for, and mushrooms really, can flourish from that. So after you have your substrate, we need to figure out how to sterilize it or pasteurize it. There's a few different options here. You can use a pressure cooker to get the temperature of the medium high enough, which will kill the rest of the other bacteria and funguses and molds that are in there. So then when you inoculate it, the mushroom mycelium will have a very high chance of growth. You can also pasteurize it. You can just get a simple cooler, fill the substrate in there. You could fill the cooler with straw and then just fill it with boiling water and leave it for a couple of hours. And that will kill enough bacteria that when you do inoculate it, that will also be safe for the mushrooms to grow. And you can also use hydrated lime. And hydrated lime, you don't need any heat for this, but essentially this will raise the pH of the medium so much that, again, it will kill all of the unwanted other bacteria and molds. So here we have, now we need to inoculate our pasteurized or sterilized substrate. So you can do that with spores. And here in the middle, there's a bag of grains that are already inoculated. And you use this spawn to inoculate the substrate you have pasteurized. It could be a little bit difficult for somebody just starting out to make, their own spawn or to make their own substrate. But thankfully, you can actually purchase pre-colonized mushroom blocks. The one that I just showed you guys, you can purchase those. There's lots of stores on the internet where you can, maybe it will cost like $20 or $30 for a block. And you could literally grow mushrooms at your kitchen table on your countertop. So after the the mycelium is introduced to the growing medium, and the mycelium colonizes the entire growing medium, you'll need to give the mushroom the proper conditions for growth. So it needs oxygen and it needs humidity. And once you give those two things to the mushroom will grow very fast. So the last thing that I kind of want to leave you guys with, this is something I personally feel very, passionate about, and this is something that, we can all work together with. Mushrooms are the food of our present, but also our future. You can grow so many mushrooms in a very, very small amount of space. Right now, we have 2 grow rooms. They take up close to 300 square feet. And we're producing over 300 pounds a week just from those spaces. 300 square foot space produces over 300 pounds of mushrooms a week. In addition to that, it's a very small cost to actually grow these mushrooms because you're essentially using sawdust and you're using agricultural waste products. So things that normally people are throwing out is the ideal substrate for this. So it's a totally renewable way to generate food. And lately, there's been a lot of initiatives all around the world to bring this way of mushroom farming to third world countries all around. There's a picture here of a mushroom farm in Uganda, and there's a mushroom farm in Nepal, mushroom farm in India. There's also been mushroom farms in Zimbabwe, Haiti, and it's been extremely, extremely successful using these low-cost methods to generate food and business for these struggling communities. So, I really see the mushrooms moving in this way and, feeding the world because, we are all connected. We're all in this together. This is the end of, us being here in this world just for ourselves. This is, the age where we're all branching out. We're all helping each other. It's the age of community. It's the age of family. And this is the lessons that the mushrooms are giving us. The entire forest is one cooperative organism. And, this is what we need to develop within ourselves. So I'm very grateful to all the mushroom beings for, all of their incredible, incredible teachings. And I hope that, this is shared with you just a little bit of that excitement and potential that, these mushrooms have for us. And I hope we keep learning and keep moving on this wonderful, wonderful path. So thank you guys so much. And I'd love to answer any questions if anybody has any.
We have one question from the chat.
Can mushrooms be used to remediate and ultimately replace junkyards? So that's a good question. So there's certain things that mushrooms are good at remediating, and there's certain things that they're not the best at remediating. Plastic is one of the things that mushrooms are not able to currently work with. But I feel that, if we have separate facilities, like recycling facilities where we only put, cardboard-based things, things of that nature, they could remediate that. But I think that there's a lot of research being done in this remediation field, and it's not just mushrooms. There's also, remediation with bacteria. There's also remediation with plants. So it's a much deeper, it's a much deeper topic. And this is currently on the frontiers. I personally don't have too much knowledge in this segment, but I think definitely going forward in the future, we just need to keep working with it. Yeah, you can definitely grow mushrooms in an apartment. So you can you can buy a mushroom block like this without the mushroom sticking out, and it can be shipped to your home. And you can literally put this mushroom block on your counter. You would have to give it the proper conditions for it to survive. So you need to give it the proper humidity. You need to give it proper amount of airflow, air circulation. It doesn't need, it needs very, very little light. It needs as much light as you do. So, yeah, you can definitely grow mushrooms in an apartment. And that is the place to start, buying your own mushroom block. But, moving on from that, you can definitely even, culture your own medium at home as well. You just need basically a pressure cooker. And yeah, it's kind of a more intensive process on how to, create it. And you need to create sterile conditions, because when you inoculate your substrate, you need to make sure that no other bacteria and funguses go in there. But there's whole communities online that are actually dedicated to this. And yeah, it's pretty amazing how fast the mushroom community is growing. What is your favorite mushroom? It's a hard question. I think it's always changing. I don't think it's fair for me to say that I have a favorite mushroom. I like all mushrooms. I'm drinking chaga right now. I have a cup of chaga right here. It's my favorite mushroom to drink in the wintertime, because it makes me feel so strong. It gives my immune system such a boost. I never get sick. But I love, cooking wise, I love oyster mushrooms. I love lion's mane mushrooms. Reishi mushroom is such an incredible mushroom for relaxation, but at the same time for increasing one's energy. It has this very interesting synergistic way of working. So it's one of my favorite mushrooms to take at nighttime.
Another question.
Are all mushrooms safe during pregnancy? So this is a good question. It's actually very interesting. We have quite a few pregnant women in our community right now, and it's been many of them, if not most of them, have experienced where at some portion of their pregnancy they just could not eat mushrooms. Before they would eat mushrooms all the time, and all of a sudden they were just totally repelled by them, by the texture, by their taste, by everything. So there's definitely something there. I think that Ayurveda doesn't, like mushrooms in terms of pregnancy. There's definitely more research that I think needs to be done on, why you shouldn't eat mushrooms, or, why you should eat mushrooms. But one of the things that my, friend who is studying to be a midwife told me is that mushrooms are, because they're natural decomposers of things. And in a pregnancy, you're really building something up. So it might be better to stay away. But I think that, there might be something different with medicinal mushrooms. So I think it's good to look into and do the research. Is there a way to grow chaga, or is it only a wild-grown mushroom that must be harvested in the forest? So chaga can only be harvested in the forest. You can grow chaga mycelium. However, you're not going to actually have the chaga fruit body. Chaga is a very special mushroom because it only grows on birch trees, and it takes many, many years for this fruit body to form. It's also, it's prone to over harvesting because there's no way for us to grow it at home. So I think chaga is one of those mushrooms that's really nice to just kind of harvest yourself in a very sustainable way. Go out there in the forest and just really, connect with nature, and it's a very special mushroom to connect with. There's a big shift towards mushroom fashion, mushroom leathers. What are your thoughts on this? I think it's great. I'm dreaming of getting a mushroom hat. There's cultures that are using these certain types of polypore mushrooms that grow off of trees, and they're very, very, very fibrous, almost kind of like wood. And there's cultures that they beat these into a pulp and create different, leathers out of them. So I think it's super, super cool. Additionally, with that, I'll just say there's also a big shift towards mushroom building materials. So insulation with mushrooms, people are creating mushroom blocks like as instead of bricks. So there's a big shift with that as well. So for sure, these are all incredible industries to go into, and it's right at the, we're right at the cusp. Everything is just starting. So there's truly a lot. Any researches about mushrooms and COVID? You don't have to answer. Well, I eat a lot of mushrooms and I haven't had COVID, but I don't know. Yes, we could definitely use mushrooms as building materials, as I just previously said. So there's a lot to do there. There's a company called Ecovative in upstate New York, actually a couple hours from us here, where they're on the frontiers of this. So it's something that I've been actually talking about with some of my friends, and something that I want to explore as well. Do we know how old our relationship to mushrooms is, for example, compared to the history of agriculture? Well, the history of mushrooms and humans goes back to, ancient times, because, whenever it was one of the first foods that, we were gathering, we would be hunting animals, and, we would see mushrooms, and, that our ancestors would be eating those mushrooms. So foraged mushrooms, I think, can go back as far as we can remember. However, growing mushrooms, from what I am aware, it's more of a relatively newer phenomena. I know that, it's my guess is that it's, only a few hundred years old. Maybe I'm wrong, but I know that back in the day, they would have, in Europe, they would have these caves where they would grow mushrooms, because the cave would serve as a good place of high humidity, and the cave would be dark, which you need the darkness for certain types of mushrooms like creminis or portobello mushrooms. But I think the science of actually cultivating mushrooms, where how we see it now, is definitely a more of a recent phenomena. Do you know anything about truffle hunting pigs and dogs? Are truffles the same as mushrooms? Yeah, I definitely know about truffle hunting pigs and dogs. I've actually never eaten a truffle. It's not one of the things that I really want to do. First off, there's so many different truffles. There's thousands of different truffle species, and truffles are actually, they spread their spores in a very different way than mushrooms that have a regular cap. In a normal mushroom, the spores will start flying from the gills in the cap. That's where the spores are released, and the spores will travel through the air. However, truffles, they grow underground, so they don't have the ability to travel through the air. And one of the things that they figured out is they create this very, very strong smell. So a lot of the times when there's a truffle spot, there's lots of insects that are going to be flying around there. There's going to be some sort of disturbance, and this is the smell that makes insects and rodents and other animals come and eat this truffle. And then when the animals eat the truffle and they go and move around in their other habitats, that's how the spores are spread. So these pigs and these dogs are trained to find the smell, find the scent, and that's how you can find truffles. Truffles are also, scientists haven't figured out how to cultivate them indoors. That's one of the reasons why they're so expensive. Are mushrooms heavy on the liver? What should we be aware of when we include more mushrooms in my diet? I don't think so. I've never heard of anything of mushrooms being heavy on the liver. I think that, in contrary, they actually could help cleanse the liver. I think, like any food, if you eat too much of it, it's not beneficial for you. So you really need to listen to yourself. That's, I think, the most important thing about nutrition and health in general, is just listening to your own body, as there's not one rule for every situation. But I think, a lot of mushrooms can actually help cleanse the liver and, can help cleanse the blood. So there's a lot of medicinal benefits, and depending on what you want to do, you should just research those particular things.
And thank you so much. Your knowledge about mushrooms is amazing. So thank you for that amazing presentation, for sharing all of the mushrooms with so many people. So thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you guys so much too. I'm so grateful to be here.
Thank you. And now we are going to hear from another member from the Flowering Sun Ecology Center. We're going to hear from Sarah on how to cook mushrooms. And then we will hear from Z, who also is from Flowering Sun Ecology, talk about sprouts. So we're really blessed to have such an amazing team here with us, people that are so knowledgeable about the earth. So thank you, Dan. Thank you, Sarah and Z, and enjoy.
Hello, I'm Sarah from Flowering Sun Ecology Center, and today I'm going to show you how to make some delicious oyster mushrooms. It's very easy. All you need is the mushrooms, some cooking oil, again I like to use coconut oil, and some soy sauce. I like to use tamari, and then a pan and a cutting board and a knife. So here we go.
Turn your pan to medium-high heat and add about 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. While the pan is heating up, you can chop up your mushrooms. You can chop into cubes or slices. It just depends on what you prefer. And then add them to your hot pan. Stir it well so that the mushrooms get coated in the oil. At this point, you can turn the pan up a little bit higher because it's going to take some high heat for them to get crispy. Now see here, they're starting to get crispy on the edges, and our aim is for all 4 edges of the mushrooms to get crispy like this. And when they start to do that, then you can add about a tablespoon of soy sauce or tamari. Stir really well and frequently because they will start to stick to the pan. Keep stirring until they're crispy, and then you're finished.
So here we have our delicious crunchy oyster mushrooms. Super good. Enjoy. Thanks for watching.